Hello, everyone. This is Dr. M. Today, I will be discussing the purpose of me sharing my story and the purpose of you sharing your story. Many adults who have experienced child trauma growing up, child abuse, have a tendency to keep that child hidden in the past. They don't want to deal with those painful memories of abuse, neglect, or any type of trauma. They believe that happened in the past and we need to leave it in the past. But they forget one thing. They forget that inner child, or is still the inner child is still residing within them, and the inner child shows up, and it shows up in our behaviors, in our attitude. The inner child shows up when we are being triggered by something. Say, for instance, a word, a color, a smell. So the inner child didn't go anywhere. It's the inner child remains in our subconscious mind, and um, and to help the inner child, right? We need to acknowledge the inner child and to revisit those painful memories of our trauma when we were children. When we share our story, it gives us a voice. It gives the inner child a voice. In addition to that, sharing our story liberates us. It gives us freedom, and also it helps other people who are going through the same thing or have been um, going through the same thing, experience trauma. It gives them, it let them know that they're not by themselves, and that they can also be healed. That's the purpose of sharing our story, so we can be free. Many people walk around today and they say, why am I depressed? Why can't I, maintain a healthy relationship, whether it's friendship, being married, any type of relationship? Why can't I maintain that? They never consider that there are things that happen to them in childhood which impacts their lives as an adult. For that reason, we need to look back and understand what took place and perhaps why it took place. It'll give us a better understanding. It is a powerful thing to look back and revisit your past. Very, very powerful. And you're not going back to revisit your past or sharing your story as a victim, because you're not, but as a survivor. You're letting the other people who hear your story know, hey, listen, I went through that, and I'm a survivor, and you can be healed from it as well, and you are a survivor. You're not a victim. That's why it's important to share our story. It gives us a voice. You'll be surprised how many people in leadership, how many people that are just regular people, that is suffering on the inside from things that happen in their childhood. I'm here to help them as well as help myself. And we can't be afraid to face our past. We can't be afraid to share our story. There is somebody that's attached to me, or somebodies that are attached to me that need to hear my story. There are somebodies that are attached to you that need to hear your story so they can get healed. So I share my story. I can tell you that as a child, I went through severe I was severely abused, not only physically, emotionally, mentally, and I also was abused sexually. I was molested at age 9, and I have all these issues going on, all these issues. But I'm not, I'm better than what I used to be. I'm coming to grips with who I am. That happened because I acknowledge my inner child. I speak to my inner child, and um, and I reaffirm my inner child that she's safe. I nurture my inner child. And you said, how do you do that? Well, I write in a journal, and I talk to my inner child. I said, like, hi Mary, how are you doing today? You know, I I let my inner child know that I understand that she's afraid, and I understand what happened to her. This is called reparenting yourself. And if I keep all that bottled up within me, I'm never going to be free. I'm always going to feel like, oh, I don't feel like I'm somebody, or I'm smart, or I'm pretty, I mean, things like that, or I'm not good enough. um that is a message that my inner child received growing up, like, you're not good enough, you're not pretty, you're not smart, you're dumb, you're stupid. And so what happens, me growing up, I developed low self-esteem. I used to compare myself to everybody, you know um and I felt like, well, maybe if I was pretty, maybe if I was smart, people would accept me, they'll like me. But that wasn't the case. I had to deal with me, my inner child. That's who's hurting. And what happened is that she reflected on the outside of how she was feeling. People used to look me up and down because I didn't wear the latest style, the name brand, but they didn't know that I was dying on the inside. They didn't know that I was hurting, I was wounded, I was damaged. And I couldn't get past the pain because I never dealt with the inner child. I prayed to God and said, God, help me. And God did help me. He healed me from the ultimate hurt. But then I had to deal with the issues that stems from me being abused. Rejection. Um, like, not being chosen for something because all my life I've been rejected. All my life I've been overlooked. All my life I felt invisible. And I never ever worked up to my potential. So when people look at me, they assume that I can't do anything because this is the front that I present. But that's not true. And this is why I share my story. I am growing because I'm dealing with my inner child. I'm reparenting myself. So my inner child will know that she is loved, that she is somebody, that she is safe. And it's a journey. I can go into details of me being abused. Like, for instance, both of my arms have burn marks on them. And that's a constant reminder of my abuse. But I'm able to deal with that, and we have to share our story. We got to share our story. Somebody needs to hear the story. It brings healing to them, and it brings healing to me. It brings healing to them, and it brings healing to you. Don't be afraid to share your story. Don't be afraid to go back and revisit those painful memories. And if you have to cry, cry. But it's all for the purpose of healing. It's all about healing. It's all about healing. Healing and becoming who God said we are. You know, yeah, I'm afraid to do a lot of things, but you know what? I'm not going to allow that to stop me. I'm going to face my fear and say, okay, I'm going to do that. I remember, because I went through abuse and I was never validated, you know, and I always trying to do stuff to get validation, to get validated, to feel valid, you know, to make me feel like I'm somebody. I always try to do stuff, right? But guess what? I always get disappointed, and then I go right back, and my inner child is wounded again. I had to learn, and am still learning, that one, God validates me, and then two, God will send people into our lives who will speak into us, who would, that He would give them that understanding of us and help us to grow and move towards the healing part of our inner child. So let me share a part of my story. Um, I was abused, and it started at 3 years old, and I was severely abused. I um I was I was kept in a dark closet, and I could not use the bathroom. I wasn't given food to eat, and when I went to the hospital, I had a protruding stomach. That means I wasn't eating. I was malnutrition. I experienced malnutrition, and they had to pump my stomach. And I stayed in the hospital for like a month until I got healed. At 3 years old, that right there told me. Oh, and also my speech wasn't developed at 3, not at all. I barely could speak, and that told me at 3 years old the message that I received is that I was no good. It made me feel like I'm the worst person on this earth. I couldn't understand why all this was happening to me. So I carried those feelings for years. For years, I walked around, you know, with those feelings, and I was always sad, and many times I spent holidays by myself. As I grew up, spent holidays by myself, crying all the time. I was very suicidal. I felt like I just wanted to end the pain. You know, what stopped me from actually killing myself, that I had a relationship with God. 'Cause I can't talk about me without talking about God, because He was one that kept me. I'm not preaching religion to you. I'm just sharing my story. And nobody ever gave me nothing for my birthday. Nobody ever celebrated me. And I watched as other people were celebrated, and me, nobody never celebrated me. And that just made me feel like I'm not important for anybody to take time out to celebrate me, to celebrate my accomplishments, you know. And I used to cry. I cried all the time. I remember living in Brooklyn, and I would get up and ride the trains all day and sit in the corner and just cry. I would walk the streets at night in the park, and I was like in my teens, like um, 19. And I remember I was 19, like, and I remember, walking the park at night, just crying. because the pain was so unbearable, and I never spoke about it, you know, and I was always looking for somebody to love me. I mean, I didn't look in the wrong places, you know, but I just always wanted somebody to say, "Hey, I really, love you, and I really care about you," and I could not find no one, and God, it was one that kept me and kept me sane, you know, so I didn't harm myself. Um, and even as I got older, the pain never went away. I remember like I said, I was walking around but dead on the inside, and people used to look me up and down because I didn't have name brands. I didn't even know how to dress. How about that? I didn't really take care of myself. You know, and because I was in pain, because I was in tremendous pain, and people used to look me up and down like, "Ew, look at this girl. Look how she's dressing." But I was dying on the inside. I really was dead on the inside. Thank God for keeping me. And throughout my adulthood, the pain never went away. Never, ever went away. And I just wanted someone just to be there for me. I didn't even have a support system, So when I would cry, I had to stop crying and just say, "Okay, you got to be strong now." So I always was serious. I never laughed. I had to be serious all the time because I only had me. I didn't have no best friend. I didn't have nobody shoulders I can cry on. None of that. You know, I just had to be strong. Like, Mary, you got to be strong. And so I remained serious all the time. And so people ask me, like, "Why are you so serious? Don't take things so serious." But I had to be serious because there was nobody else there for me, you know. And I continue to be that way for a long time. You know, always wanted to be accepted, to the popular group. Always want somebody to like me, but um, that didn't happen. But that was okay, you know, because I realized that I have to love myself and I needed healing. I mean, it took me years. It took me years to get to this place, And one of the things that I had to do was like really forgive everybody that hurt me, and I asked God to help me to do that. And then I started working on myself, but I was still hurting. I didn't really understand that I needed to deal with the inner child. That's part I didn't really understand. I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, but not knowing that I had to go back and deal with my inner child. I didn't know that. I just found that out recently, that I had to deal with my inner child. I had to acknowledge my inner child and start reparenting her. And that's when I really began to really get healed and really begin to understand. That's why I share my story. It's not like I'm just telling you something that I don't know. What I'm telling you is because I'm experiencing it. I write to my inner child. I talk to my inner child. I'm like, "Good morning, Mary. How are you? I see you." And I talk to her and I say, "You're safe." And I tell her that I love her. And so when I do that, um, my inner child feels safe with me, and then my confidence levels goes up. Like, I remember um, talking to my inner child. As a child, I was kept in a dark closet, right? Not able to go use the bathroom, not go out. I was kept in a dark closet. So when I started dealing with my inner child, which was recently, I can see my inner child in a closet, shivering, right, in a closet, like, scared and frightened. And I began to talk to my inner child. And I was like, telling her, like, it's okay, Mary. You can come out of the closet. You don't have to hide anymore. You don't have to be in the closet. It's safe. And I continued to talk to my inner child. In some kind of way, I would see her, like, and and the more I spoke with my inner child, the more she started taking steps to come out of the closet. And I know it sounds crazy, but it's not really crazy, because there are books on healing the inner child, talking to your inner child. There have been studies done on, the, adults reparenting themselves. And that's what I started doing, and I do that every day. I speak to my inner child every single day. I understand that's where the healing needs to take place, with my inner child. I went through a lot of abuse, emotional abuse. I didn't get the love and affection that I should have gotten when I was young. I didn't even know how to say I love you to somebody. I mean, that's a hurdle that I need to come over, that I need to get over. I'm not to hug someone, be freely to hug someone. That's hard for me to do. But I'm going to learn how to do that. To express myself. Sometimes my thoughts get all mixed up. Why? When I was young, my speech at 3.5 years old was not developed. I wasn't able to talk. I wasn't able to express myself. And that's why sometimes I get all like mixed up in my thoughts. I know what I want to say, but sometimes I get all mixed up. I used to stutter. I had a stuttering problem. You know, I wasn't. I was all messed up. But that's going to change because I'm working on the inner child, and I love me, and I'm beginning to love me, and beginning to accept me, and that's why I need to share my story, and that's why I, did this channel of the healing journey. It's an amazing journey to rediscover who I am. It's an amazing journey to rediscover who you are. And so share your story, tell your story, talk about your story. Somebody needs to hear that. Somebody needs healing as well. Somebody feel that they're by themselves and they don't have nobody to tell. And when you have gone through trauma, you know that it's hard to trust. But I learned that if I continue to keep the walls up, my inner child, like, okay, we're keeping the wall up, we're not letting nobody in, I will never ever learn how to love anyone. Somebody has to come into my life who I have to learn how to love. Now, when I talk about love, like we love our children, because I have a daughter, I have a grandson, I love them. But the part that I'm talking about is the nurturing part of me, the love that I didn't get, that I should have gotten from my mother, right? The affection I should have gotten from my mother. That's that love, you know. And if I don't open myself up and I keep the walls up, I will never learn how to love and how to be affectionate towards somebody, and God will bring the right person in our lives who we can do that with. They will God will give them an understanding, and learn how to be patient with you. Um, I'm sharing my story. I mean, it's so much more to tell about my story. And I will continue to tell my story, but I just wanted to let everyone know that there's there's a healing power in sharing our stories of trauma. That starts our like healing process, sharing it. Because what it says is that I'm ready to face these issues. I'm ready to face the pain and the hurt. That's what it's saying. And I'm going to talk with my inner child so he can feel safe to, and I can, feel them and talk to them and encourage them and reaffirm them, make them feel safe, nurture them, let them know that they're smart. The reason for that is that it's not the adult us that needs to be healed, but it's that inner child who's still there, hiding in us. Many people leave this world and they never get healed. They can be 80 years old and those issues can still be there, and they're still dealing with that inner child who never been healed. I don't want to be that way. And I don't want to have any regrets of not doing the things that God had placed in me, you know? And so it's like, okay, well, let me get on this road, to healing. I have to do everything that God has placed in me. If listen, I gotta learn how to be confident. Okay, so I'm gonna learn how to be confident. I'm gonna talk to my inner child. Okay, and let her know and reaffirm her. I'm gonna learn how to love. Right. I'm gonna learn how to be affectionate. I'm gonna tell myself that you are somebody. Why? Because I want to be healed, and I want to help others be healed too. So learn. So if you want to write down your story and tell somebody, write to yourself, write to your inner child, so you can be on the road to healing. We don't have to be depressed. We don't have to walk around sad. We don't have to look at ourselves like we're nothing and nobody, because there is a path to healing, which I am on, and I want you to be on as well. And if you're tuning into my channel, that means you want to be healed as well. So please share your story. Sharing your story is not just for you, but it's for somebody else who needs to hear it and be healed. Please subscribe to my channel and look for more videos on healing. And I will start talking about, I think the next video I'm going to do is about projection, psychological projection, right? And psychological projection is when I have a problem, like say my mother had a problem, and instead of her dealing with her issues, she projected those issues onto me. And that's why I have issues, and that's why I was abused. So I'm gonna talk. Next video I'm gonna talk about is psychological projection. So please stay tuned and like my channel. Um, in the near future, I'm looking to have some guests on, and I'm gonna try to get call in so we can, so you all can, so we go have dialogue. You know, this is um, you know, healing from trauma is never easy, but it can be achieved. So once again, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to my channel. You can click on the button down there, as you know, and subscribe. I do have an email if you have any questions. You know, um, you can. Well, I should put that in the link, so it will be in the link. My email will also be in the link. And let's just start this dialogue and get healed. Blessings to you all.